requesting notification.
Today is September 11th. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor the first victims, first responders, and their families who have sacrificed so much. Thank you. Do I have approval of the meeting from the notes from March 13th, 2024?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. General public comments.
No general public comments today, sir.
Okay, staff update, please.
All right, I'll give you an overview of the summer cycle. This cycle, as you know, we have 18 projects in total, so we'll hear about 9 of those today. And those are the 9 on the table on the screen, which is also in front of you and provided in advance of the meeting. This cycle, we do have 3 rural projects totaling about 125 acres, 6 urban projects totaling 127.5 acres, and then 2 Mount Pleasant Way projects, almost 15,000 linear feet of multi-use path. One note also is that we have a conservation easement back again. It's been several cycles since we've seen one of those. That's the first one on the list there, the Scrambler's Knob Horse Farm, and then the rest are fee simple with Isle of Palms also having a minor improvement project. The dots show the spread of all 18 projects throughout the county this cycle. So we've got them all the way from the Santee River up in the northeast down to Edisto Island in the southwest. And these are the specific projects you'll hear about today. Again, your Mount Pleasant Way projects here, Isle of Palms, beach access improvements. Moving around this way, the Harmony Public Tract in West Ashley, Red Top Park, just inside of the urban growth boundary in West Ashley, Tugadoo Boat Landing expansion out in Meggett, Scrambler's Knob Horse Farm Conservation Easement on Johns Island, Simmons Creek County Park also on Johns Island, and James Island Family Park. Next, we'll take a little look here at the financial implications of today, any actions you take today, as well as the full cycle. So there's 2 new rows on this. Those are going to be the rows near the bottom that have the black boxes on the far right here. And the reason for those is that they show the impact if all 18 projects on this cycle are approved, even though you won't hear about half of those today. So with the 3 rural projects, we've got a total ask of almost $2.9 million. If that is approved as well as rural projects next week, we'll still have $9.28 million left available for the the summer cycle, the second cycle. Then we've got the City of Isle of Palms. They're asking for $315,000, which is just about all of their available allocation. City of Charleston, just over $1 million. Town of James Island, $938,000. Urban Unincorporated, just over $1 million. And then the town of Mount Pleasant has the 2 Mount Pleasant Way projects requesting a total of $1.46 million. If all of those urban projects are approved, that would leave a balance of about $3.28 million for next cycle. And let's see, that should be, I think there's a typo down there. That should be the same number, 3.28. But overall, if everything's approved, there'll be $12.5 million left for the second cycle of the year.
Eric,
Yes, sir.
a question, just I'm trying to, under rural funds, I'm just trying to find it at the bottom there. So total requested this cycle is 2.8. We got 20 million there, so I understand available balance if these projects are approved. What's that next one, available balance if all cycle projects approved?
So that includes the rural projects that you won't hear about today. You'll hear about those next week. So we didn't want to give details of those projects without the presenters here to talk about those. So there's about 8.5 million in requests that you'll hear about next week. So that just backs that amount out.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. And can I ask one more question?
Sure.
As I went through these, I think this might be the first time that Charleston County Parks and Recreation has come before since I've been here. Can you explain the relationship of Charleston County Parks and Recreation to Charleston County Council?
Sure.
I don't know the I don't know how it's formed, and if you can just kind of quickly.
Yeah, I'll take a quick stab at it, and then Adam and Matt, when they present, if I get anything wrong, you can correct me there. But as I understand it, they were created as their own, essentially special purpose district, separate commission from the county. So county council does appoint members to their board, but they are not a department of the county. They make their own decisions completely on their own land. It's not held by the county. They're their own separate entity.
And how do they get funded? How are they funded? I'm just trying to figure out, you know.
I think it's just their budget gets approved through the county, but they have their own millage. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
so it's like a 50-50 split in terms of tax and then revenue from the park system itself.
Okay. All right.
And they have
Millage when you're tax
they have had
dollars.
projects
Parks.
come through
Right.
probably before your time, Vice Chair Scarden. I know there's at least one or two that went through this process. And then if you think all the way back to the first sales tax, there was 38 million taken off the top and given to PRC for them to purchase land for the park system.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm a fan of the Parks and Recreation, but I just didn't understand the relationship, that's
Yep.
all. Thanks.
Your taxes funded.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get right into the project presentations. Just a quick rundown for those that haven't been through it yet, and a reminder for everybody else. Here's how the process will work. I'll introduce each project very briefly, and then the presenter will give their presentation. You'll then ask any questions that you have of the presenter at that point in time. Following that, if we have any public comments, those will be made. And then we'll need a motion by you. Following the motion, then you can start discussion and deliberations on the merits of the project. Then there will be a vote, and that recommendation will go to the full Greenbelt Advisory Board at their meetings in October. Doug, are you here? Doug Kerr? All right.
I don't see him.
Think they'll get bumped to the end of the agenda. So we're going to have to skip over Isle of Palms. I don't see anybody here to present for them. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into the two Mount Pleasant Way projects. I'm going to go ahead and introduce both of those right now, but then we will take those as separate projects as far as the public comments and votes. The Mount Pleasant Way Mathis Ferry Trail is your standard Mount Pleasant Way project. It runs on Mathis Ferry from Eagle Street to US 17. It is a corridor project in the urban area, would produce 10,300 linear feet of corridors. The town is requesting just over $1 million of their allocation and bringing a match of $2.3 million, with the bulk of that being design and construction costs for the trail. Then the second one is the Mount Pleasant Way Venning Trail, which runs from US 17 to Rifle Range Road. Again, town of Mount Pleasant, 4,650 linear feet, and they're requesting $454,000 with a $980,000 match. And I've got Sophie Holmes, staff engineer, to give a presentation for you, as well as James Aton, who is the deputy director of Public Works. Capital projects. All right. All right, I'll let y'all take it away. And you do have a laser pointer if you need to use that.
Excellent.
And you can just either click or use your arrow buttons there.
Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Sophie Holmes, staff engineer with the Town of Mount Pleasant Capital Projects and Transportation Division. Again, this is James Aton with the same department. Thank you for having us today and considering our application for Greenbelt funds for these two projects and furthering our efforts in developing the Mount Pleasant Way. So most of the subcommittee is familiar with the town's efforts to develop the Mount Pleasant Way. The project came out of our 2019 comprehensive plan and was a high priority for residents based on our public engagement with that plan. The way will provide connections between residential areas, parks, schools, commercial areas, various public services, and it exemplifies the hubs and spokes model, providing opportunities for active transportation and environmental friendly mobility. There are also opportunities to celebrate local history and culture through plaques, pocket parks, public art, and perhaps most importantly, this will enhance safety for bicyclists and pedestrians. So the Mount Pleasant Way is a shared use path, which will be 10 to 12 feet in width to allow for comfortable and safe two-way traffic sharing uses between bicyclists, pedestrians, folks on wheelchairs, dog walkers, strollers. We see a diversity of users using that Mount Pleasant Way in the sections that we've already built throughout the town. And the spine route plan, which was developed in our Mount Pleasant Way master plan, is designed to connect the most popular destinations, those schools, parks, recreation areas, et cetera. I want to touch a little bit on the progress so far of the Mount Pleasant Way and how these two projects will expand that project. We have developed Mount Pleasant Way along Von Ed Key Parkway, Park West Boulevard, portions of Hungry Neck and Sweetgrass Basket Parkway, which the county has been involved in, Billy Swales Boulevard, Wingo Way, Harry Hallman Boulevard, Darrell Creek Trail. So those represent a combination of new roadway projects, which the Mount Pleasant Way has been incorporated into, as well as retrofitting other roadways to have this resource. We also have a number of projects that are coming soon. All-American Boulevard, a portion of Highway 17. I want to highlight Mathis Ferry Road and Whipple Road. Portions of Mathis Ferry Road have been approved through this Greenbelt process previously and will be coming to design thanks to state allocations, as well as Whipple Road, which was approved through this process and will connect to the Mathis Ferry portion that we're discussing today. Ben Sawyer Boulevard and Park Avenue Boulevard are also coming soon. So here is a map of those projects with the green representing imminent trail, ready for design effectively, and existing trail in red. So our two projects today, this is the Mathis Ferry Trail, and this is the Venning section. Let's see. There we go. For those previous sections and these sections, we have worked and will work with residents, our design engineers, town staff, to really make the path fit within the context of its surroundings. That can include reducing the width of the path to 8 feet in constrained areas, protecting trees with boardwalks, alternative paving methods, improving drainage, whether that's putting in ditches, regrading, adding underground drainage improvements, as well as appropriate signage for safety, environmentally sound landscaping, local plants, and of course following the ADA requirements and PROWAG recommendations. Again, the town has experience administrating these kinds of projects and with stewardship of Greenbelt funds. With the other section of Mathis Ferry that will connect to this section we're proposing today, we worked with residents to protect their personal property, minimize tree impact, and gather public input that informed the design, including drainage design, a couple pocket parks, and tree protection materials. In a broader sense, we also have experience with public engagement, public information initiatives, as well as, of course, extensive construction and project management experience. Here are a couple renderings of other sections of the Mount Pleasant Way. This represents what it could look like in these two areas. So you see this landscaped buffer, which has some stormwater impacts, positive stormwater impacts, delineated driveway crossings, which increase safety for bicyclists and pedestrians, and these pedestrian crossings with the rapid flashing beacons to alert drivers to that shared use. So now I'll talk specifically about this Mathis Ferry Trail, beginning at Eagle Street, which is where the previously approved section terminates, running along Mathis Ferry and ending at US 17. This connects as well to the Scanlanville Trail, and we're anticipating that those two projects will go to construction in 2025, so that is imminent. And then it also connects to Whipple Road. We're anticipating potential grant funding. We've been applying for grant funding for the design and construction of that portion. As Eric mentioned, we are requesting $1,006,000 in Greenbelt funds for right-of-way with a town match of $2.3 million or 220, it might have been 6, can't remember, percent. And that design and construction is funded through our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. So why this section of trail? When the Mount Pleasant Way master plan was developed in 2021, this part of town was number 2 out of the most highly recommended segments. And that's really because of the resource it provides in access between residential areas and those civic uses. It'll be a little under 2 miles, and the path will replace the existing sidewalk on the southern side of the road, providing access to the library, the senior center, schools, additional access, as I said, to Whipple Road, which provides access to Long Point, another important corridor, and then the Venning Trail, which I'll discuss later, which provides access down to Rifle Range. So that really connects all 3 of those major thoroughfares. We performed, in addition to a public meeting, a survey. We got a lot of really valuable feedback. Out of 174 responses, 61% were in favor of the project, 10% on the fence, and 29% opposed. I will note that after the public meeting, we had a number of people come up to us and say, hearing more about this project, I filled out the survey already, but I'm now in favor. And the major feedback we received was regarding safety, drainage, and tree protection, which are things that we have experience in and will make efforts to mitigate. Some of the quotes we received here represent a lot of the responses. So minimize tree loss. Drainage and water management should be of the utmost importance. This will make it much safer for those of us who run and exercise daily. Additional signage and safety and visibility. So that concludes the Mathis Ferry Trail section there. So any questions or comments?
I just did want to note they received 19 letters in support of the project and none in opposition. And excellent job, Sophie. I also failed to mention everybody's going to be on a strict 10-minute time limit for presenting today, so you'll get a 2-minute warning when you're getting close. But great job. And no public comments for this one.
Can we do the vending street one now too?
You can, if you would like. If that's okay with the chairman, I'd recommend 2 separate votes.
Do I have any motions?
I was just, quick question, if you don't mind, to the presenters. So just knowing Mathis Ferry with its drainage issues and, large trees really close to the road, can you just briefly talk about some ideas about how you're going to, avoid damage to the trees and kind of help out with drainage? Nothing detailed, just kind of curious how you guys are approaching that.
Yeah, so a couple things there. In terms of design techniques, those boardwalks, we could consider pervious pavement, depending on, as we get further into the design process, whether or not that's appropriate from a maintenance perspective. But another advantage of this kind of work is that Mathis Ferry Road and many of the roads in town are SCDOT roads. So by taking this kind of path, shared use path, which is outside of the SCDOT design requirements, we have the opportunity to take on the maintenance of that portion and be involved in maintaining those drainage efforts associated with this trail. Again, tree protection is something that we've worked through with the previous section, so we really wind around the trees. Those boardwalk sections protect the critical root zones of the live oak trees, and again, reducing the path width as necessary.
Thank you.
Anything to add on that, James?
Go ahead.
Just a quick question on the match. The grant that you got from the Transportation Department, we've seen that before in other ones, how large was that grant? And have you taken that and is it going to specific projects, or are we just seeing the same dollars? The other question is, has the town of Mount Pleasant, or have you all set aside the funds that you need in order, if you could just talk about the match a little bit, just the availability of the match.
Yes, so the funding coming from USDOT, I believe, is in the realm of, is it 12.6?
16 million almost.
It's about 16 million, including our town match, which is dedicated to this. There are 17 specific projects, so this is one of them. And there's a specific amount of money allocated to each of those 17 projects. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Yeah, thank you. One other question. We talked about it on another project, the process before you start in the design phase. I've started riding my bicycle in Mount Pleasant on the road, and it's nice and smooth. Do you have these folks come in and talk about what they would like the path to look like, or have you already just made up your mind and said?
Yes, so we will do public engagement, public involvement, not only because we want to as a town, but also it is a requirement of that grant funding.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any more questions? Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Next.
All right. Moving forward with the Venning Trail segment, this is actually the Mathis Ferry section sort of right here, and moving across US 17 continues down Venning Road, terminating at Rifle Range Road. We're requesting $454,000 in Greenbelt funds for right-of-way. The match for this is estimated at $980,000 for design, which will be funded through our town CIP, which is allocated yearly for the Mount Pleasant Way, and that'll cover the design and construction of the trail. This segment is approximately 4,600 linear feet. Like the Mathis Ferry Trail, it will replace the existing sidewalk, which in sections is as small as 3 feet, providing access to neighborhoods and commercial areas, as well as that important connection between Mathis Ferry Road and Rifle Range Trail. This section is considered a secondary route in our Mount Pleasant Way master plan, but the decision to apply for Greenbelt funding for this route at this point was based on feedback we received from the 4 Mile community during our previous application cycle. They really emphasized to us that this would be a really valuable connection down to Rifle Range and Mathis Ferry. Again, we conducted a survey on this project. We received 39 responses, which is about in proportion to the number of responses from the Mathis Ferry Trail based on the number of folks living along this route. 87% were in favor of this route, 5% were on the fence, and 8% were opposed. The feedback we saw in this survey was very similar to that on Mathis Ferry Road, including requests for improved pedestrian level lighting for that safety element, maintenance, continued maintenance, which the town will take on, and of course, tree protection. Couple things to highlight this from these quotes. Safety is the #1 concern. Physical barriers, so we will put that landscaping strip in where it's practical. Let's see, this is a vital connector to the Mathis Ferry sidewalk and will open up many new areas of the town to explore safely. So that was a little bit of a shorter section, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer as well.
Can you go back to the map for a second?
Yeah, of course.
And why is it secondary? What does that mean? What does that mean exactly? Secondary to the other elements.
Yeah, so when we were developing that master plan, it was really intended to go past those key attractions in town. That's where we wanted to prioritize. The secondary routes are a really important part of the Mount Pleasant Way in terms of connecting doorstep to destination, but the majority of the highly recommended routes do go past schools, parks, libraries, senior centers, and these secondary routes are an opportunity to improve connection to those primary routes.
Got it. Cool. I would motion for approval.
No public comments. Did want to note they had 19 letters in support.
I got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Next. Thank you all.
All right, next up for your consideration is the Harmony Public Tract, which is a City of Charleston request coming from their allocation for just under 115 acres of property in West Ashley. It's a fee simple acquisition. Their request is for just over $1 million from Greenbelt, and their match is just over $1.3 million. When you look at the map here, it's the area in green, not those two sections in yellow. And I'm sure Matt Compton, Special Projects Administrator with the city, can tell you more about that. Matt?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excuse me. Good.
This doesn't work sometimes.
All right.
You might have to click it.
Very good. Good morning. As Eric mentioned, my name is Matt Compton. I'm the Special Projects Administrator with the City of Charleston's Capital Projects Division. And I'm presenting this morning on behalf of the city. Sarah Hager over here is a grants manager in our Department of Budget and Finance and Revenue Collections. She and I worked together on assembling this grant. I got to do the site assessment and putting the fun little drawings together and helping navigate the process, because I've been working on these grants for the city since about, I guess, 2008 when these first started. So the fun part, I got to go out in the field and do all the good stuff. So make it go. All right, so the Harmony Tract is a part of this larger parcel. The subdivision is still being finalized, where it's right at 115 acres. Glen McConnell Parkway here, Beast Ferry Road, the railroad track runs right through here. This is the back of the Canterbury Woods subdivision. There are two roads that dead end at the property line. This was always envisioned to be a future subdivision back through here. So you've got Pinehurst Drive and Wicklow Drive. This big green blob here is the 200-acre West Ashley Park. If you've been, there's 4 soccer fields here, 4 baseball fields here, about 48 acres of lake there. We abut Church Creek, and then a bunch of trails through the woods back over in there. This parcel is currently zoned PUD, and the city is in the process of amending that PUD and with the developer, or with the current owner, and entering into a development agreement, and that is part of a settlement agreement associated with this property. And this is, yeah. All right. Come on. There we go. All right. Figured out which one to hit. So this was the original master plan, and I mentioned that this is part of a settlement agreement. In 2004, Harmony West Ashley LLC entered in, they started developing plans for this parcel. This is Pinehurst Drive here, Wicklow Drive, Shelby Ray Court, West Ashley Park is over in this area. And they had a plan, a PUD allowed them a little bit more flexibility. The zoning at the time was SR1, so they technically had the density rights to 436 single-family homes. And they came back with this plan that was 240 different types of single-family homes and some commercial and a lot of open space. And they brought this to the city council in January of 2015. It got approved. They bought the property, started working on it, and then if you'll recall, It rained a lot in 2015. At the end of August, we got a really big rain, and we got a minor flood in the Church Creek drainage basin, and everybody started thinking about it. And then in October, we got the atmospheric river event, and it flooded a lot back in the Church Creek drainage basin, which is basically 5,000 acres, most of which is on the other side of the railroad tracks, that all eventually drains down through here and winds its way through here and out underneath Highway 61 and out to Ashley River. And so for those that were out on the site visit, I guess that was last month, we were right over here, Lake Dodderers, West Ashley Park. We were on this dike right here, which is right across from the property that we were looking at. And that's important because these pictures are from that same area. And I apologize, these are stills from a video that were taken by a resident called Canoeing Through the Park, the Great Charleston Flood of 2015. So this is, it's still raining, so it's kind of drizzly back in there. If you hunt the video up, it's pretty good. He said it to Johnny Cash's How High's the Water Mama. And it paddles all through the park and some other neighborhoods. But just for reference, this is a disc golf target. This is a rice trunk over in here. And boy, you really can't see it. There's the tips of some bollards sticking out here where there's a gate. 2 days later, the gate from the other side, the tips, this is from, I didn't have a boat, so this is as close as I could get on foot and kind of zoomed in. Where, the water's dropped a couple of feet. 2 days later, it's dropped a couple more feet, and it's still, though, Church Creek's over here, Lake Dodderer's over here, and it's connected across the middle. And then finally, 8 days later, we're dry. There's the disc golf target. There's the rice trunk in the background. Lake Dodderer is still not down to the normal full pool level. It was going to take several more tide cycles for it to get there. And on October 4th, when we had all that record rain, the riverine floodplain was full. So all the woods throughout West Ashley Park, the floodplain area, looked like this. And the assumption is that all of the floodplain and our project site looked like that. Well, what's the floodplain? Everything that's got color on it is the floodplain. All right, so throughout this 166 acres, anything that's not white would have been wet. If it was the dark green, it would be between 0 and 12 inches. If it was the light green, it'd be between 1 and 2 feet, between 2 and 3 feet, so on and so on. Under normal conditions in our area, though, the green, you can develop in that. If you can meet your requirements. The yellow, you can develop in that with a little bit more effort. And even getting into some of the orange, you can develop in that if you meet the requirements. So the development plan that they had put together, and this is just a crude tracing of their impacted area, in 2015 met the requirements. Well, the flooding was so bad over there, and we just so happened the county had just finished the Beast Ferry Road widening project and also the West Ashley Circle project on behalf of the city. And everybody thought that was the issue. So they went through and they did a study, and they ran a whole bunch of complicated simulations and determined that those didn't actually contribute. The issue was we got a lot of water that's trying to drain through a relatively narrow corridor. And so they came up with a development moratorium so they could think on it a little bit, and then it rained some more while we were underneath the development moratorium. And they extended it until they got it to where they wanted it to be, and they released new guidelines and lifted the moratorium. And under those new guidelines, the owners of the property determined that they couldn't build what their PUD allowed them to build, that the city had approved, within the new guidelines. It wasn't a way to do that and meet all the requirements and make the engineering work. So they entered into a lawsuit to protect their rights, as any good property owner would. And the city and the property owner entered into amicable negotiations that actually wrapped up this past July, I believe, is when we came to an agreement. So this was from August of 2019 until July of 2024, we've been working with these folks trying to figure out what we can do. And so the settlement agreement keeps the same number of residential units, but it changes the type. So no single family, a lot of connected units, townhouse type development. So it's a smaller footprint, and it's all multifamily, adult multifamily, so 55 up. They keep the same 16,000 square feet of commercial space that's over here, but the big thing is it reduces the impervious area. Less grading is required because they're working inside of the better part of the property for development. Increased protection for the freshwater wetlands, and it still gives us the opportunity to make connections to the adjacent communities and the future impacts because of the type of community that would be allowed. There's not going to be an impact to schools. The should be less of an impact to traffic, and they're also thinking that the infrastructure impact is lesser. So the subdivision, like I say, it's still being finalized as we tweak a couple things. This corner is probably going to move up a little bit so it lines up better with this existing utility easement in there. But this is the 166 acres. And so this is Church Creek across the bottom, railroad track all the way across this side. This is the back of the Canterbury Woods subdivision. Parcel 1 is the commercial area. They're allowed to build up to 16,000 square feet. Parcel 2 is the residential development. This is the part that would be the park parcel. All of this property line down here up to this corner, the city owns the other side of that creek. That's part of the West Ashley Park parcel. And then there is a road that would go through here that's on an existing tramway that goes through the marsh there. It's been there for probably 120 years. And that would be the access point from here to here. This is something that our fire marshals had them put on the plan. It's a potential rear emergency access. If that were constructed, it would not be usable for routine vehicular traffic, but we would require it to be part of the bike ped system that we want to put in there. So that's just there as a concept that just, you know, it wouldn't go where it's shown right there. Do what now? All right, move along. All right, so this is a conceptual master plan that we put together. And the key thing here is not developing all of this and using it to make connections. Coming through this parcel to get over to and through this parcel. We want to work with these folks to get through this development. They don't have a master plan for this or this, but this would be basically a rural road section with a shared use path on the side of it that would tie in with existing networks over in here. That's important because when you look out here, you start to make connections over into West Ashley Park. Eventually, we want to make a connection across here in an existing sewer easement, which would allow somebody that is currently in this part of the neighborhood to go 1.25 miles to get to the baseball fields or the soccer fields versus driving 5.1 miles to get from here to the same location. And that's also important because the Canterbury Woods and Springfield, which have been there, Springfield started in the late 50s, there is no sidewalk that connects to this community. There's a railroad track that you can't cross. There's Highway 61 that you can't walk on. There's Church Creek that you can't cross. They're stuck. They can't get anywhere. And we would like to be able to utilize this trail system to allow them to get over to the high school that's over in here, to get to the library, to get to the bike trail system that the county just completed on the Glen McConnell Parkway, to get over to the West Ashley Greenway. So there's a lot of flexibility that comes with making that connection. A little bit of the history real quickly. This area it was phosphate mines. Church Creek is right across through here. This is the Ashley River, this is North Charleston. Phosphate mining is an interesting industry, very extractive. If you're bored one day, you read up on it. There's a lot of interesting stuff. But our area is in this part of, so this is the approximate location through here. Pretty much all of our site was hand mined. Portions of it were machine mined, where they bring in the big dredges and dig even bigger holes. So this is 1919, this is 1936. So by 1919, it had been mined. By 1936, it was considered timberland. Somewhere in this time frame, it was purchased by a furniture manufacturer, then became Georgia Pacific, and then Mr. Whitfield, and then it went to the folks that have it now. We assume it's been timbered at least once because this is labeled as pine, and there's not a whole lot of pine out there. But there's a lot of this. So this is the north side of Church Creek. On the north side of that causeway, the railroad track is probably another 50 feet or so through the woods back in there. It's about 300 feet from the road to that railroad track. This is another interior wetland area, also assumed to have been impacted by phosphates. phosphate mining. This one is not directly connected to the creek, but would be in a flood condition, certainly with groundwater. And this is an area where the creek is actually closest to the property. You just can't see it. It's right there. This big ditch is coming out of one of the old phosphate drainage channels. You can see the critical area, the marsh on that side. This would be a really neat spot for us to put in an access point. And it's right beside one of the future trails. This is where the power easement comes across. We would peel off from the new road that would be right behind the photographer in this location. There'd be a trail that wraps around, goes over just past this pylon, which is 200 yards or so down, and into the woods, goes around past that spot in the previous photo, picks up the sewer easement, and comes through. Development would be on this side, park would be on this side. A different view of that. That trail would come across through here, and then around over to here. That little neat spot that I showed you on the creek is there. The sewer easement is over here, and a different view of that same thing. And the note here on the future connection, that sewer easement that runs along this north-south line between the development and the parcel we're looking at, crosses the creek right here. The sewer line is actually in the creek, which probably explains why the grass on this side is a brighter green than this side, because it impounds a little bit of water. City owns all of the left side of Church Creek, and it goes up, and the creek actually ducks into the woods here and then turns up this way. There's the sewer line that's in the creek, and that we would eventually like to work with Charleston Water Systems to cross through here and hopefully move their pipe out of the water so that we could then allow kayakers to get an extra half a mile up the creek in there. Just a few more character shots. This is the biggest tree I found on site. I'm not sure if it's the biggest one on site, but it's a 41-inch southern red oak. That palmetto that's in front of it is about 40 feet tall. So gives you an idea of, there's some big ones out there. Some critters, a whole bunch of these guys, at least when I was out there. Summary, we're asking for $1,026,500. $1 million would go towards the purchase price. The city, the $26,500 would go for all the due diligence and closing costs. We're not asking for any money for the site improvements. Parcel is appraised at $2.3 million. The city is putting in $250,000. Landowner has reduced the price by $1,050,000, and that other 12 is a part of the closing cost on I think we're splitting the survey. We're not requesting any development funds. Initial access will be on the larger piece on the Canterbury Wood side. I've got a former coworker that lives over there that has been birding on this site for decades. So people are already using the site, and we would facilitate that pretty readily. The future developer will construct the access road, and that's when things would pick up. So sometime between 2025 and 2028, probably a little bit later in that time frame, we would have the ability to make the connection over to Shelby Ray Court, and the future access improvements will be funded outside of the Greenbelt program.
Good.
All right, excellent. Any questions?
No public comments on this one, but we did, and did not receive any letters either.
I got a quick question.
Go ahead.
Y'all had initially put into the Conservation Bank a request for $500,000. What happened to that one?
We found out yesterday that they had a lot more requests than they had funding to distribute, and so they asked us to withdraw our application.
Can you briefly discuss how you plan on improving it and why, or maybe we should just note that you're not planning on asking for Greenbelt future money for that, or maybe that just the record should reflect that or something, but can you touch on that for a second?
Yes, so right now there's some easy path systems that basically exist. So with a little bit of work, we'd be able to make some connections to those. And then when we develop the plan, because right now we've got the fun part, drawing pretty pictures on, and getting the marker out and thinking. When we develop a plan and figure out what the permitting aspect of it is, we'll have an idea of what the cost is, and then we'll put it in our cycle for capital improvements.
I've reviewed the appraisal. The appraisal is fine.
And can you go back to your initial showing the overall, it showed the flooding area?
Yeah, if I can figure out, let's see if I can, here we go, up arrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 60/40 wet.
Yeah. So if,
in the report.
in heavy rains, that whole green area will flood?
Yes, sir. In the heaviest rains, in the 500,000-year storm, it'll get wet. And so the green area would be, the darkest green would be 0 to 12 inches. Light green would be up to 24 inches of water.
Which we had 9 years ago.
In the subdivision that's going to go in there, that's going to be all in the high area? I'm
Be mostly
assuming-
high area. They still have some buffers and stuff they got to work around.
My understanding is gonna be like a retirement elderly community.
Multifamily.
So I'm assuming it's going to be elevated because they'll
It has to
still
be.
get some flooding in there.
That's correct. They'll have to meet all the floodplain, and we require 2 extra feet above it.
Commercial on the bottom part, and 1, and 2 is gonna be, retirement, 55 and older kind
Yeah.
of community, and the rest of it's all gonna be green space.
Right.
And then that road that goes from 1 to 2,
Right.
how is that going to, is that just going to be an elevated road that allows for the free flowing of water underneath it?
Yes, sir. There are 4 pipes at this crossing. I'm hoping that we can actually get a bridge out of it, as, you know, when they go into the permitting side of it. They'll have to work with us and, to make sure that, they meet our requirements, but then they'll also have to work with the Corps and OCRM. And so, you know, what we looked at with the West Ashley Circle was making sure that we had, culverts that were specifically for wildlife travel. So what we'd like to do here is to have something similar, make sure that we've got good flow of water and also movement area for the wildlife. This would be, if you're familiar with Mary Ader Avenue, which is basically, it's a 22-foot asphalt section, a narrow shoulder, and then with some trees in it, and then the bike path over on one side. Basically the same thing, slightly narrower right-of-way, but that's the intent, kind of a rural feel coming through that area.
Thank you.
Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Do you have a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, ayes have it. I say nay. No nays.
All right, next project for your consideration is the James Island Family Park. This is in the town of James Island. It's a fee simple acquisition of 6.1 acres. 2 different parcels there, one being upland, one being marsh. The request is for just over $938,000, which is the full amount that's available to the town right now in their allocation. And they're offering a match of 218%, just over $2 million. Some of that's purchase price, some of that are planned improvements to open it up as a park. And I have the Honorable Mayor Brooke Lyon here to present to you today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You can use this as a laser pointer if you need it.
Okay.
And you can click on that or do the down and up buttons to go through slides.
Okay, so down goes.
Yep, that's just your next slide.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brooke Lyon. I am the recently elected mayor of the town of James Island. I want to thank you so much for your time this morning. I want to present a very unique property that could greatly enhance the quality of life for those on James Island as well as all county residents. I would like to introduce you to the James Island Family Park at Mill Point. It is located in a well-developed neighborhood setting and is ideal for conservation. The property's unique nature make this an increasingly rare opportunity to provide environmental and social benefits to residents of James Island and the county. The addition of this green space would assist the rapidly growing region with risk reduction associated with natural disasters such as storms and flooding, resource protection such as water filtration, preservation of access to and sense of place with low country landscapes, conservation of wildlife habitat, and preserving and interpreting important local history. James Island Family Park at Mill Point will help to fill in the growing landscape of green space protected through the Charleston County Greenbelt program. It is a perfect fit for the hub and spoke model with a sidewalk for multi-use path along Fort Johnson Road that connects this neighborhood to other parks and Greenbelt properties, and also to more developed transit corridors. The bike lanes on Harborview Road and Folly Road are only 2.5 miles and 1.3 miles away, respectively. This stunning property will offer county residents the chance to experience this disappearing environment. Bordered on two sides by pristine marsh and mature live oaks, this 4.3 acres is currently providing some flood mitigation to the surrounding neighborhood, as well as critical wildlife habitat. There is potential for water access for a variety of uses, which is a scarce resource in this area. The property is covered in mature landscaping and native vegetation that would require little alteration or initial maintenance. Magnolias, pine, and maritime forest mix to create classic scenes and a robust habitat. There are more grand live oaks than I could count. I would guess upwards of 100. It is amazing. The existing infrastructure on the property is limited to a guest house, which is an historic structure built at the turn of the century by local farmers called the Bulb House. It was part of the Agricultural Society experimental station trying to find a solution to the boll weevil. Farmers of the day also shared and stored bulbs and seeds and ideas. It was considered the Clemson extension of its day. In the 1800s, there was a tidal corn mill stretching across the tidal creek. By using a dike to control the flow of tidal waters, residents were able to use the tides to grind corn. One of the millstones was recovered in the surrounding pluff mud and is a great reminder of the resourcefulness of the residents of James Island living here at that time. This will be a great opportunity to share these stories and provide interpretation and education at the site. These slides show some insight into how the town has managed Greenbelt-funded parks in the past. You are looking at slides of Pinckney Park, which was funded by Greenbelt and is a great example of good stewardship by the town of James Island. Minor improvements envisioned for James Island Family Park at Mill Point will be designed to have the lowest possible impact. Our goal is to increase access to the habitats of James Island for all county residents and provide many recreational and educational opportunities. We envision walking and running paths, a picnic shelter, different kinds of play areas, and access to the marsh and water. We feel Mill Point aligns with the vision of the Greenbelt program and is a perfect candidate to be added to the list of protected properties. It has passive green space with water access and recreation and educational opportunities. Protecting natural resources such as native plants, healthy marsh, abundant trees, and wildlife habitat will all be accomplished by preserving this amazing property. It encompasses a heritage landscape with a historical home and millstone with future potential to expand. There will be full public access and will be managed by the town of James Island. This is such a wonderful, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to obtain and protect such a special place. Please consider supporting our application for Greenbelt funding so we can make this dream a reality. Thank you all so much for your time. And at this time, I'd like to entertain any questions.
I got one.
Yes, sir.
What did you say the future use of that structure is going to be?
The house?
Yes. What do we?
So We are going to have a community meeting. We have different ideas. It could be a museum. We could potentially have kayaks available for the public to use, paddle boards. It could be a place for those to be checked out. It could potentially be an office, at least in the beginning.
What's the current condition of it?
Excellent. It's been fully restored. That value, if you'll notice in the application, is $200,000, and it is not included in the cost for Greenbelt, although I do believe the recent appraisal had it at $250,000. But at any rate, we're requesting the funding for the property itself, not the structure.
Did you see an appraisal?
It came in after the application.
What did it appraise as?
The appraisal came in at $2,675,000. The selling price is $2,775,000. And so the town's match will be over 200%. We just got the appraisal a few days ago from the seller.
Quick question, Charlie.
Go ahead.
You had mentioned that there was possibility for expansion. Can you just touch on that briefly?
Yes. So the adjoining parcel, it has an African American cemetery, a veteran cemetery going back to the 1800s, World War I. I believe that we could potentially get that person to at least sell us that portion of their property, since they can't build anything on a cemetery. And the location of that cemetery, which, well, it's hard to show. If for those who did the site visit, I showed them the cemetery. Anyway, it borders right next to this parcel, and it would be a real easy survey to incorporate that. So that's an exciting possibility for us. In addition, the seller owns a parcel right before Mill Point that he may potentially sell us in the future, all or part of it, or rent us part of it if we need.
1.6 acres.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And the town is planning to put down $50,000 for a down payment. We're working on the contract right now, and I'm hoping to get that to council next week, fingers crossed, if I get good news here today.
Lisa, a question that I have, how much money has the town of James Island put aside for this project?
So the town is in great financial shape. We have up to $2 million in unencumbered funds that we could access. However, we are likely going to do a bond issue for this, so we don't have to tie up all of our unencumbered funds. We have absolutely no debt at this point, and it would be something that we could pay off very quickly.
And does this, I'm trying to remember, I looked it up on the GIS, but this connects out to Fort Johnson Road, is that right? And then if you head down Fort Johnson, that takes you down to Pinckney Park, is that?
Correct.
So that would be your connection. And
Correct.
is there a bike lane or a walking sidewalk on Fort Johnson?
There is a sidewalk down Fort Johnson most of the way. There's a few little gaps where there's no sidewalk, where the trees and the houses just didn't make it possible, but very little, just a few hundred feet down towards the
And
South
I think there's
School.
soccer fields along the way as well.
Correct.
Okay. There you go.
There's Fort Johnson right there.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have public comment?
We do have one public comment, Mr. Rod Welch.
Mr. Welch?
He's the owner of the property, right?
Hi, my name is Rod Welch. Y'all hear okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
All right. I'm the current owner of this property, Mill Point.
Okay.
I bought it about a dozen years ago because I saw a brochure that said you could build 18 houses on this property. And I went to the property and tried to get on the property, got on a little ways, but it was so overgrown, you just couldn't see much. But I saw enough, and I called the owner directly, Skip Realtor, and arranged to buy the property right then. And I have spent the last 12 years kind of uncovering it. It's been like uncovering a world and taking a blanket off it. And it turned out to be this beautiful property. It has about 100 live oaks, 60 magnolias, and hundreds of azaleas of all different types. And it has really been fun to uncover it. It's kind of neat to own a property for, say, 6 years and suddenly discover a 40-foot live oak that you didn't know was there. The place was covered by grapevines. You really just couldn't see things. And I've enjoyed it, but I know that when I die, it'll get sold off to, because I have 4 daughters, and none of them would be able to have enough money to buy it. And I just want it to stay like it is, because it's really a special place if you were to go out there. And so I approached the town about it, and this is where we are, and I hope you will approve it.
Thank you, sir.
A lot of letters in support too, Eric.
Oh, you did? The town has 6 letters in support of the project been submitted so far.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a
None in
motion to
opposition.
approve.
I'll second it.
First, a second, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
I can't wait for y'all to come see it in person.
We got a couple big ones to go.
All right, another project for your consideration today is the Red Top Improvement Association's application for Red Top Park. This is located in the Red Top community of unincorporated Charleston County. It's 6.1 acres. They are requesting just over $1 million, and $300,000 of that being a minor improvement request. So it would need to come from urban unincorporated or small landowner. There's no match being offered at this time. And I would note that this is currently and has been a community park for Red Top. They have a lease with the school district on the property, but they're trying to secure it going forward into the future. So now I'll introduce Dr. Melody Dover. She's the president of the Red Top Improvement Association. Ms. Dover, come on up.
I also have Jamal right with me, who's the VP.
All right. So you can just slide through those, with the down and up button right there. And if you need to show them anything, there's a little- see how those are pointed on there? Okay. All right, take it away.
Thank you. Good morning to you all. We really do appreciate you having us and hearing what we have to say about something that is so very sentimental to us. It's just piece of who we are. Jamal is probably a generation from me, and then the generation before me, and before me, this is Red Top. First, I want to tell you that Red Top is a very unique community. It's also somewhat of a forgotten community. If you were to ask us probably 10, 15, 20 years ago, where's Red Top? Nobody would be able to tell you. When I search the World Wide Web and I put Red Top in, I find nothing. What I did find is Beulah with Red Top, Beulah/Red Top/Charleston. But I want you to know that we're unique because we had 3 plantations in the community of Red Top. And of those 3, I'm going to talk more about one because of time's sake, which was settled back in 1875 by actually our cousin, James Grant Sr. I said cousin by my uncle, granduncle, and 29 other individuals who lived on the O'Hare plantation. And what they did is they got together and they were able to purchase this property and move away just slightly, right down the street, we might say, or across the bushes from where they originally lived on O'Hare plantation. Oh, wrong way. Here is the plaque for, it says Marshfield, it's Marshfield/O'Hare, and you're going to see a map of Red Top with the 3 different sections. But those are the individuals right there who actually purchased that property back in 1875. Now here's the map of Red Top. If you were to look, this is the pointer. How do I point? Mm-hmm. Okay, all in here. This is where the Beulah plantation was. Here, the James Bay area, that was O'Hare. Over here is Marshfield. All of this is Red Top. But the uniqueness of this is it was 3 plantations and we became one community. Now today we're here to talk to you about Charleston County School is owner as tax map number 28500000067. It's about 6 acres, as he said, 6.1 acres. 3 of the acres are high, 3 is wetland. Now this park has been in our community forever and a day, approximately 96 plus years, as I can date back. This is a picture of different angles of the Red Top Park. So why is this park so special to us? Really, it grew us. It helped to shape us. It made us who we are today. It's a huge part of all that we are. It's a staple for the community. This is where we hold all our meetings. We grew up on softball, baseball, the football. It was our playground. We had our free lunch program. We had the clinic there. All the after-school programs. All community activities were held there and still is. And most importantly, the Red Top Park is actually where the first school, official school in Red Top was held. This school was the Red Top School, and it was a Rosenwald school. This is the school that my parents, his parents, and most everyone in Red Top attended. These are just some of the activities that you see here. You see that gentleman there, that's my grandfather-in-law who died at the age of 106. And the reason I put him there because he's the epitome of what nature is and what that means to our culture. You can see on this far end, I'm not technically savvy. Right here, this guy. They're out on the park years ago. This is a grown man now, playing football. His name is Tony Dees. Tony Dees is now a dentist and a pastor at St. John Baptist Church in Red Top. That's what the park means to us. So why are we here? We're asking Greenbelt funding to please purchase this piece of property 285-000067. This property has been in the community and is utilized by the Red Top since the community's inception. The desire for us is to use this property to reconstruct the Rosenwald School and to share all our rich history with any and everybody who want to hear it. This land is the land of the Rosenwald School, which is a national historic piece of property, and is very sentimental to us. The ecosystem is well balanced, and we don't need it disrupted by developers coming in to use it, and that's what we're looking at down the road. It's a piece of property that gives us peace, tranquility. Nature is just there. It is truly medicine for the soul. Now we have partners. The conservation voters of South Carolina, we're working with them. What we're discussing is once we acquire the property, they will in turn reconstruct the Rosenwald School. They're currently working on Rosenwald trails, and this has been done in other areas, and they're looking to do that with us. The Weejova Foundation works along with the Conservation Society as well, the conservation team, and I work along with them, and we're working on promoting African American history. And of course, it's me, the president, and we are a 501c3. The Gullah Geechee Corridor, we are a Black settlement community, and we are currently working on a project with the Gullah Geechee Corridor, which is to preserve our preservation project. We're learning all about our history. We're recording this, we're documenting this, etc. The Gaylord and Dorothy Foundation, we just recently got some funding from them to assist with oral history, and then we have other domains. We just recently received from the South Carolina Department of Archives of our marker. We're working with the College of Charleston on oral history. Of course, we're working with Charleston County Schools, the National Park we're about to contact, and we're always working with our governments, agencies. Here is Bulow. Here is our story. When I told you I searched, and when I pulled it up, and I saw Red Top, this is what I saw. And it is part of Red Top. It's a major part of Red Top. And this is how it goes. Back down in Bulow, in the 1800s, everybody realized that rice in South Carolina was real important. But they didn't have the manpower to actually do the production. But Sierra Leone did. They had skilled expertise workers who can run the fields and get this done. So they went and they got and they brought us back. And we worked the fields and we worked it well. And as a result, Charleston, South Carolina made very good profits. But as time progressed, the Civil War came about. And after the Civil War, that's when the phosphate mine, all of this is in Bulow. This is where we were. This is what we were doing. And the phosphate mines, we began to work that, but we got paid because now we're free. But we're still on the plantation. Some of us were sharecroppers, some were indentured servants. But we are free, and now we're making $1.75 a week. That's a big jump from zero. So we're able to purchase homes. Hallelujah. I have some money and I'm buying a house. Based on the oral history of my father-in-law, who is 93 years old, he explained to me that they could buy a 2-room home or one. A 1-room home was $100. and a 2 was $200. And that's a picture, and this property actually, this house actually is a historic home that is still in the Red Top community. We had little education or none at once. Then the first very school that we had in the Red Top community came out of St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, which is still there, and that's a historic piece of property. Then we went over to, we got the Rosenwald School. And for you all, I'm sure you're familiar with the Rosenwald, but it was Booker T. Washington and Rosenwald who got together, and they talked about the importance of education, how it could benefit all. And so as a result, Rosenwald decided to build schools in Black rural communities. And Red Top happened to be one. Parker's Ferry on this end is another, and they paid like $2,900 during that time. This woman that you see on this picture is one that I did oral history with as well. And she told me of how many miles they had to walk towards school. Miss Esseline Weary. Thank you. Right there is the letter down below from the, from the historic, State Historic Preservation Office, giving us permission to get a marker for the Tobin Boy Elementary School, which was a segregated Black school right down the road from where I live now, that I attended up to grade 2 before we integrated. Now look at this. The first picture you will see, one of the owners of Bulow Plantation was the Draytons. And this is a descendant of the Draytons, along with Mr. Herschel, we call it Herschel, but his name is Richmond Herschel Bowens. He is a descendant of this. Mr. Bowens was actually born on the plantation, on Drayton's plantation, but he lived in Red Top. And he died in Red Top. Now his burial is in the Drayton Plantation African American Historic Cemetery. This man in the middle was also from Red Top. His name was Curtis Dason, and he was one of the first male rural carrier, not male, but first rural carrier, period, in the 1820s. From Mr. Dason, we went, and why was that important? Because we weren't getting any mail. We didn't get any kind of correspondence. We were just there in the dark. And this man, who is still alive, Mr. Willie Hampton Jr., was the first one to actually deliver newspaper. Again, we were closed off from the world. That meant the world to be included in all the news that was going on. Now look at us now. You will see 3 generations of higher educated people. The first one, second, and third. And then you will look on the other end and you see 2 little kids. Those are our future. Those are the next professionals that are going to come up in our communities. All 5 of these people is a part of the Red Top Park. Those 2 little ones on our last Halloween fest that we had, they came out all dressed up in their costumes and their big smiles and their candy buckets, and they were on the Red Top Park. In our community, this is the story we're going to tell at our new reconstructed Rosenwald building on the Red Top Park. We have 8 churches. And of the 8 churches, 2 of them are historical. St. Mark's UME Church and New Bethel AME Church. But we also have another one that doesn't have the distinction of historic, but they really are, and that's the Presbyterian. Now this is the way we live. We still actually live this way. We are currently working with the city of Charleston to do an area appraisal so we can distinct ourselves from a lot that is coming in, the developments. So if you look, that's another historic home right up top. And we have several mobile homes in the property. And right up there is my father-in-law, and I put him there because he is really a distinct person in our community that keeps us alive and tells us and educates us about farming and taking care of the land and fishing and on and on and on. And here is a newer home. And this is the newer home, and this is where we want to go. And this is where we lie. We have 3 cemeteries. 3 cemeteries in the community. We have the Bulow Cemetery, which is also has several of our black soldiers who are resting there. We have the O'Hare Cemetery, where most of my family is. And then we have the Red Top Cemetery, where people are currently being buried. Now, even without all the tools and all the necessary elements that we needed to be successful, Red Top is still thriving. Red Top is very resilient. It has never gone under. We are still progressing. We may lack capital, but we have something that make up for it in strength, in hope, in dedication, and in determination. Thank you. We pray that you find favor in granting us to purchase the Red Top Park.
Thank you so much. I love the project and I love the story. The issue I have, there's still a lease on the property for another couple of years, is that correct?
It is, yes, sir.
And who established this price? Where did this sales price come from? It's the school district?
Well, the price actually came from, we did not do an official appraisal.
Okay, that's
but
the problem.
But we did get some assistance from the county to go and look at the property and had their experts to do an appraisal, which came back at about $750,000.
Okay, so if they had an appraisal, why didn't they give it to you to submit with your package so we could have something? Just a word of mouth is, we need something more substantial as something in writing.
Yes.
Especially from the school district, if that's their sales price, let's see the contract,
Well, I'll tell you what originally the school was saying.
okay?
The school was actually saying $3 million.
Yeah, well, that's not accurate.
Right. And so what we are, we have zero issues with getting an appraisal done, okay? But we didn't want to, we don't have like funds just to like go
Right.
and do something.
I understand.
So we wanted to make sure that this project was going to go. We have to be very wise in what we do with the little that we do have,
Okay,
so that we can keep moving forward. So if it's an appraisal that is needed, we will have an appraisal. We were told that we needed one. We really were told, but I thought with the county going out just for this piece of it, that may suffice for this part. But we understand that we will need an official appraisal.
any other questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You have an incredible amount of support from many organizations, some of which are funding organizations. Can you please describe the process to obtain funding so you could have a match?
Right.
You have no match.
Well, when I leave here today, first of all, I want to say this to you. I'm pretty thorough in what I do, almost to a fault. I'm getting better with age. But this is new to us. This is the first time that we've asked for anything in the way of grants. So we're learning as we go along. And so right after this meeting, once I heard that matching funds,
Right,
I said, okay,
Yeah. That's just something.
so one of the things that I did immediately was got in contact with the land grant the Low Country Land Trust. And right after this, I have an appointment with him.
Good.
And we're working on a grant. So I just don't want, we as a community do not want this property to get away from us because we don't have or know all the information. You can bank. We'll get it and we'll do it because we want it. We feel like it's already a part of us. And for most people don't even realize that the park don't belong to us. Charleston County School didn't even know it belonged to them. Till most recent.
That's shocking. One more question I got. The minor improvements of 300 grand, what's that for?
Well, we were looking, we have the highlands and we have the wetlands.
Yep, it's half and half.
Right, and so we would like to kind of make trails, do whatever we can to make it look better and to work better and to be more inviting.
Got it. Any other questions?
Just a couple. The house, is it on the National Historic Register?
Which
The school,
house?
the school, I'm sorry, the school, is it actually designated?
The school is no longer on the premises,
Oh,
but Rosenwald, but the land would be, and it would easily be converted because Rosenwald is a National Historic piece, and we have all the evidence that the school was there. We still have probably close to 30, 40 individuals that still live in the community that went to school there.
okay. Yeah, I would just, I'm glad you're connecting with Low Country Land Trust because they do this all the time.
Yes.
And I'm sure they'd be willing to help you, but at least for me, the match is a big issue. Also, the fact that I don't get the feeling that the school, school district is even, are they interested in selling the property?
In all honesty, it's a hope and a prayer that they are.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we do have our councilman working along with us.
Good.
We are working with the school board, and they are having a closed door meeting this month,
Okay.
and they're going to inform us as to exactly what's going on.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I can unofficially say, it sounds like they are moving in our direction.
Okay.
But
Good.
until we have that meeting, I'd make a recommendation to defer this until we get more information either with an appraisal or the outcome of that meeting.
But it's,
And I'd like to know that, you know, a match, that you'll be able to get some matching funds, because I think they're available to you.
Well, we're definitely working on that. Once we learned, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Does this grant require a match, or is just more favorable?
I can answer that. Speaks to that in the ordinance. It says that while matches are strongly encouraged and a big part of the criteria, having a match is not absolutely required. I did do a little research. Out of about 215 Greenbelt projects over the years, 28 of those did not have a match. Those were almost all City of North Charleston, those small parcels that all came
Right. Did they
in one
trade it out or
trench.
did
Yes,
what they
sir.
had to do to-
That's correct.
Right.
so it's not required, but it is desired. How about that?
Yes,
We'll
yes.
say that.
Understandable.
And so I think I'm agreeing with the chairman. It seems like I like the project. I always thought Dodge's Fried Chicken was about the only thing they had in Red Top, but
And that's the myth that we want to dispel.
yes, ma'am. And so I've learned a lot today, but I think that we just need to get the package together that would make it more favorable and make us feel better
We
about
need to
voting
get-
for it.
The pricing's still a little high to me. I mean, the property 2 doors down sold for $175 an acre. I did some homework on this, so 2 doors down, same 2 acres, 2.3 acres sold for 400 grand, which equated to 175 an acre. And y'all asking 365 an acre, which seems a little high.
No, it's 250.
Well, I'm just going by Highland.
Oh, okay.
I'm not, you know, I hear what you're saying as far as, Yeah, 65 on million, it's 250, got it. But I'm just looking at the highland uplands. I did some homework on this, so I'm a little, but I just think the number's a little high. I don't know where it came from, whether they told you or shared that number with you, but we want to defer it and you to come back. We love the project. I just think it's a little pricey.
Okay.
That's all. That's my 2 cents.
Quick question. I think maybe to Eric. If we were to approve this without any further information, but I'm in agreement that we should get more, how would that even work if we don't know if the owner, in this case, the school district, is willing to sell? I feel like
So-
we need that in order to make sure that these funds can go through and be used appropriately.
Absolutely. I've met with Dr. Dover several times leading up to this, and we've discussed the issue with not yet having a willing seller. And what we basically said is keep moving through the process. It might happen at some point between now
In the lease?
and county council or the GAB, but it hasn't happened to this point. So at a minimum, they've got their application started. She's now familiar with the process, and I think there's some good pointers that she could probably take from this. If you all decide to ask her to defer and come back with more information, we would not take it to county council without a willing seller.
No, you can't.
So even if you continued to move forward, if we got to the point of going to county council without
They're not going.
a willing seller, I mean, the ordinance also says we only award projects with willing sellers. So-
Right. So I think it sounds like we're in agreement. I'm certainly in favor of the project, but we just need to make sure that they're willing to sell. So then, we could then vote to release the funds and be able to purchase it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Anyone? I'll make a motion that we defer, and with that deferral, we'd be looking for additional information to include an appraisal, some sort of vote of confidence or confirmation from Charleston County School District on their willingness to sell the property, and then I think also additional details on the minor improvement request funds.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We will see you again. Hang on 1 second.
Yeah, just for some clarification on that, is this being deferred, I'm assuming, to the next cycle without calling special meetings just to hear one project? Was that the
It's fine
intent?
with me.
Yeah, because they're gonna have time. They got 2 more years on that lease.
I-
So they can't,
Actually, I can't confirm that. Do you know how long you have on the lease?
No, actually, your decision.
I think that's the ballpark.
Yeah, well, I think it's more close to like a year
okay?
on the lease.
Well, we got time for you to come back and let's
Well,
discuss it.
I don't know that we do have time as you speak. Because what we're looking at is working along with the Rosenwald Trail, which would be like next year
Okay,
in 2025.
okay.
And so they're ready because there's other trails, so we'll get pushed like way under or behind. And so that may delay or cause us not to even get the Rosenwald School reconstructed. So we're trying to work everything on the timeline so that we'll be ready when the Rosenwald grant is also ready.
I'd be willing personally, I'm not going to speak for anyone else, but if we got the appraisal and we got the willingness to sell and there was a timeline we needed to hit, I'd be willing to come in for a special meeting.
Yeah.
We would reconvene for
Ju-
you,
Absolutely.
Okay.
but hopefully it works within this next cycle and then we can work it in, put it top of the list.
Okay. And the next cycle is specifically when?
That will open the last Monday of October and close the last Friday of January,
So. we're
with funds
talking
being awarded around
3,
April.
4, 5 months,
Okay.
okay?
All right. Well, the appraisal is not a problem.
No,
Um,
but
so-
the
and we
school
will-
district is, so we need
Yes.
to be definitive of that
Okay.
before we can move forward.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. And Eric, do we get in contact with you when all of this information we have? Okay.
Absolutely,
Okay.
he's the point of contact.
Okay. All right. All right.
And again, I get Low Country Land Trust to get active in this thing too.
I would
Oh,
get
well,
everybody
the
involved.
appointment is soon after I leave here. And it would have been soon before here had I known.
Well, and,
Yeah.
and we wish you the best.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Thank you
Thank
all.
ma'am. Okay, next, Eric.
Okay, thank you.
Next up for your consideration is the Parrishville Road Tougadoo Boat Landing expansion. And this is a request from Charleston County Park and Recreation Commission for the fee simple purchase of 1 acre in the rural area, requesting just over $950,000 and offering a $1.6 million match. And I've got Matt Moldenauer, Senior Planner with PRC, and Adam Ronan, Land Resource Planner, to present to you today. Matt.
Thanks, Eric.
You're welcome. Just up and down keys are probably your best bet there.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, thank you. Eric, got it? Okay, thank you. Thank you for having us. So, that's right, we've got 2 parcels we're looking at today. I just want to follow up on the last presentation. Oh, they're gone. Charleston County Parks owns nearly 2,000 acres just down the road from Red Top. And we have the Bueller Cemetery that they mentioned is actually on that property. So we'll reach out to them as well. So my name is Matt Moldenauer. I'm Senior Planner for Charleston County Parks. I'm joined by Adam Ronan, our Land Resource Planner, and I'm going to give a brief overview about our agency, and then talk about the Parrishville Road Tract, and then we'll transition into Adam discussing Simmons Creek property. So on your screen, you see some kind of typical images of what happens in your Charleston County parks. That's pretty much everything under the sun, as we say. And it's our mission to improve the quality of life for residents of Charleston County. We offer programs, facilities, and lots of services all throughout the county in both developed and undeveloped or more rural areas. So Charleston County is pretty big. More than 400,000 residents. We're a special purpose district. We're a separate agency from Charleston County. In fact, we're established by the state to serve the people of Charleston County, and that excludes the area encompassed by the Francis Marion National Forest. Generally, our operational breakdown is 50% comes from tax revenue, 50% from facilities and programs, and that's how we fund our general fund. And we utilize dedicated capital funding that comes from its own dedicated millage, as well as a variety of other funding sources like leveraging grants. And then we have like most other agencies, have a 10-year comprehensive plan we call Parks and Recreation for All, just completed last September. This is a map of the agency, and what you see are, some properties in green that are currently open to the public, some properties in red that are not yet open to the public, but in total it's roughly 11,000 acres. And that 11,000 acres includes about 20 existing parks, 19 boat landings, one of which we'll discuss today, 15 future parks, and 5 community recreation sites in those more rural parts of the county. Basically, we can't compete with municipalities when municipalities provide active recreation services. In the rural areas, that's what we provide. And we obviously maintain our own properties. We manage undeveloped properties, forest management, things like that. And then boat landings are free to access for the public. And just last year, we had over 3 million visitors. And so the 2 properties we're discussing today, Tougadoo Boat Landing or Parrishville Road Tract out in Maggot or Young's Island area, and then the Simmons Creek Tract, which is off of Old Pond Road in Johns Island, kind of near Main and River. I want to point out on this map, this is a population map, population projection map, and I think it's worthwhile to note that when Charleston County grows, it will largely grow to the west. So you can see the Simmons Creek Tract, which we'll discuss later. It's basically a heat map. You see the orange is kind of darker in that part of Johns Island. If you're familiar with Johns Island, you know that Bronzewood Road is pretty well developed now. And then you can even see some orange in the Maggot area as well. In terms of need, West Counties, I mentioned, is going to have substantial growth. When we had our comprehensive planning process, people in West County
desired the following in their parks: restrooms, views, and access to water. They like wooded areas and quiet, clean spaces like most people. And they would like more events, family-oriented events, and adult recreation. And then top priorities would be more trails, preserving natural areas and historic sites, and more programs all around. So the first property is Parishville Road. This is directly adjacent to the Tougadoo Boat Landing. The quality of the images on my screen are much better than they appear on your screen. So if you can imagine, that's a deep water creek that you just saw there. This is one of the 19 boat landings that we operate under a lease agreement with Charleston County. And no new boat landings have been added since the 90s, and obviously the opportunities to expand them are rare, yet they're also in high demand. So this is just kind of a vicinity map or context map of the surrounding area. The property that we're talking about today is down here in the left corner, bottom left corner of your screen. And you can get to it from 162, or you could take Tougadoo Road. Up this area is the public library, town hall for the town of Hollywood, town of Meggett's town hall is right over here. A property that you're awarding funding for last cycle, I believe, is right up there, the Harrow Farm Park, and then right across the creek is our Megget County Park. And in terms of water access, it's 5 miles west to Roxbury Park, 10 miles to Harrow Farm Park, so you have to go around at the Post Office Road. But Tougadoo Boat Landing is a 2-ramp landing on deep water. It is currently located in public right-of-way, which means that parking is kind of constrained to the shoulders of that area, and it has a pretty poor, and I'd venture to say unsafe circulation pattern. It's not something you desire in a high-demand area. Parishville Road is a dead end, but I'll point out that this is the current circulation pattern. People will drive down Parishville Road, and they'll swing. Remember, they have a trailer. They'll kind of jackknife their trailer a little bit and do a U-ey and back in, and that's what your queuing looks like at Tougadoo Boat Landing right now. And when they need to park, they can either park along these shoulders, as I mentioned, or what they end up doing is they park along the shoulder of Parishville Road, which is not desirable by the residents, and obviously not encouraged by us. So that being said, the parcel we're talking about today is this 1-acre parcel immediately to the west of the landing. It has about 200 feet of waterfront access and green space. It would provide safer access. We've got a concept to share. Might provide parking potentially, and there may be a need to stabilize the shoreline, provide some buffers to neighbors, and we believe that there may be cultural resources on the neighboring parcel, which one might presume they may extend onto our parcel as well. It's something obviously we would study. This 1972 plat indicates there was a graveyard nearby. And so on top of that, we'd also be protecting this waterfront from further development, right? And securing it for the people of Charleston County. That's the big goal. So these are some street shots of the property. You can kind of see this is the right-of-way I was discussing, right? This is kind of a clear shot to the river, to the creek. The property currently has a trailer on it, a mobile home on it, that would be removed ultimately. There are some other structures. There's also you can see the creek here, but there's also an existing pier head. And when we acquire the property, we would also be acquiring a permit to construct a 40-foot floating dock on the property off of this pier head. And so that would be valuable to us. Conceptual design for the property, again, it has to be surveyed for a tree survey, an archaeology survey, and a few other things that are standard with Charleston County Parks planning and development. But this is a conceptual layout of what it could look like. And I think the most important thing that you see here is one, that there's an opportunity to improve circulation
by keeping people either on the road or on this property and not expecting them to do a U-turn in the middle of the road, in the middle of a bend in the road. We would dapple parking in and among the trees. We have zero desire to cut down the trees that are there because what they are mostly grand oaks and live oaks. And so we'd want to protect those to the extent practicable. And then you see that we would dedicate probably the majority of the property, but certainly a good portion of that property along the waterfront to passive public access. We would provide ADA accessible parking, would be a goal. Connect people to that pier head and a courtesy dock that would be located there, and all around, provide a really improved experience. So, what's next? The first thing we would do is, obviously, once we've gotten our surveys, we would begin removing those attractive nuisance items, which would include that mobile home. It would include the structures that we don't desire to be there long term. And for all intents and purposes, it would essentially become accessible to the public. As for the capital improvement side of things, we feel like would be ready to move on that pretty quickly. But that would obviously be up to our commission and would have to be prioritized on a capital improvement schedule. But I don't know, Eric, I missed if you talked about our matching funds on this, I'm sorry. But I think our total value of anticipated matching funds was around 1.6 million. And that accounts for if we had to end up doing shoreline stabilization, for example. That includes various parking improvements. And so we are currently negotiating with the landowner. In fact, we're pursuing a purchase and sale agreement right now. Our commission has taken action to acquire the property, so that's a good first step. And what we're requesting from Greenbelt is reimbursable funds. And so you can see that our impervious surface limit would exceed the standard, and that's mainly because it's such a constrained site. And I covered some of this already. Next things we would do is get our archaeology survey and site surveys, and then try to open it up to the public, at least in a limited way. So, Eric, can I entertain questions at this point? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one note. You didn't call it out on your slide, but the standard impervious surface limit for this would be 0.06 acres. They're requesting up to 1/4 of an acre just because they don't really know yet what ADA requirements will be and all of that for this site. So if you did choose to approve, that would almost be like a special condition allowing that.
Right there is probably what most boaters would like to have, is that courtesy dock. Because I think right now they have to wade out and climb in a boat after they put it in and park the car. And that would be available immediately once y'all close, right?
Well, it's kind of funny. This floating dock floated away pretty much right after we started negotiating with them. But that would be one of the things we would. Wow. First thing we would do would be to secure the pier head to make sure it's safe. And then I think we would immediately, provided our commission agrees, we would immediately start working on that. So the pier head remains, the dock does not. But that would be a goal to get it reestablished, yes.
And that dock would be replaced anyway because you have a permit for a larger floating dock than what's actually there.
Yep, so ultimately it would, yeah.
Ultimately, yeah.
Question, going back to the impervious surface, and I guess the parking, you mentioned, that there might need to be an increase for ADA. I mean, is that for the parking, or is the plan that, is parking going to be improved at all? I know you're trying to work around the trees. Could you just explain?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we've kind of conceptualized at this point is we have some parks, and I'll give your Rifle Range Road trailhead. I don't remember, is that paved? I think the travel lanes of that parking lot are paved. And
the ADA parking.
The ADA is okay. So what we do in some parks is we pave the travel lanes of the parking area, and then the parking spaces themselves are pervious.
And so that quarter acre accounts that if we decided to pave the travel lanes from a sustainability standpoint, that is proven that that's more sustainable from a maintenance standpoint for us. We come out to these boat landings once a week to maintain them. So if, for example, hypothetically, it was ROC, rock, and it started getting potholes, and then the next thing you know, everybody's complaining about, oh, they're stirring up dust. It's a provision that we wouldn't want to do impervious surface, obviously for cost reasons, but we've accounted for that in budgeting and for the impervious surface in that it becomes a nuisance over time. So it's a worst case scenario.
Okay.
Can you get back to the slide about the match? I just want to understand the match a little bit better.
I think that's your slide. Yeah. But I do have that information right here. The match consists of mostly the public access improvements that Matt's told you about, as well as a $40,000 towards the purchase price, which is the value of that pier head.
And we did get an appraisal on this one, I've forgotten, right?
Several. Yes, that's right. There's been a few. Yeah.
Okay.
And that purchase price, what the appraised value was $980, less $40,000 for the pier head is $940, plus some of those additional closing costs is where you get the $950, $900.
But is the owner pursuing another appraisal? Was that what I saw in the application?
They had. So we had one, they had one, we had a second, and our commission authorized based on the second. So. Yeah, and they've been cooperating willingly. I think relative to both landowners, they've probably been pretty patient. But we're rounding the bend with them right now, contractually.
And the thought is you're going to go ahead and buy it, and then this would be a reimbursement?
Yes, sir. We would buy it, and then our goal would be to develop it using our own capital funding.
I think this is a question for Eric. Eric, if they come back later with that exception on the impervious surface, do we approve that later, or do you want that dealt with now?
I mean, if you all are comfortable with it, I think it would be best done now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the requirement if you didn't approve it now and they decided 5 years down the road that they really need to pave that drive lane, then it would require a grant agreement amendment, which would come back through the GAB and have to go to county council.
Mm-hmm. On your staff, you have people who look at the whole layout as far as the trees and those type of things that you wouldn't damage.
Absolutely, that's what we do. Yeah. So I'm a landscape architect. Adam's a landscape architect. We'll hire. In fact, we have a proposal from a surveyor to do that work right now. And once we have everything surveyed, we would start to take a closer conceptual look at it, but ultimately we would hire an engineer to do that, to help us with that process. And part of that design process is making sure that what's designed, we're able to effectively maintain and operate per our lease agreement with the county.
And I'll just note, no public comments, but they did receive 2 letters in support of the project.
I would motion for approval.
I'll second it.
You want to include the exception for the impervious surface now?
Sure. I motion for approval with the exception of additional impervious surface up to 1/4 of an acre. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, we have a second on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you. navigate to the next one.
All right, next project for your consideration, another PRC project. This is the future Simmons Creek County Park, 66.7 acres. 1.7 million requests from the rural allocation and offering a very healthy match of 4.1 million. Adam?
Thanks, Eric. Good morning, everybody. My name is Adam Ronan. I'm a land resource planner with PRC, and I'll be speaking about our second application at Simmons Creek Future County Park. So there's two tax parcels in this application, the Simmons Creek parcel, which is a larger 53-acre parcel, and then the Willow Oak parcel, which is a 13-acre site, and I'll speak to both of those. Again, sharing a map, a contextual map about where it's located. We've already mentioned it's on Johns Island off of Old Pond Road, just another indication about growth in this particular part of the county. And also, you know, just showing too where the active parks are, right? So we obviously know where James Island is, County Park. There's also Johns Island County Park, also known as Mullet Hall to many people. Cawcaw's up here. So we have a range of active parks and passive parks that are kind of in this vicinity. This is our D3, what we called our D3 district in PRC. So this is how we kind of manage it in terms of a district-wide, or view it as a district. So a vicinity map here, just to bring to your attention, you know, connectivity to our parks is critical, right? So we're always promoting and looking for opportunities to connect with bike ped. Blue Trail connections is always something we're looking at. So this is a really cool and unique opportunity to connect this parcel to Simmons Creek, right, which is its namesake. Then it cuts up. There's a nice cut up to the Stono River, right? So you can paddle from the Stono coming into Simmons Creek and then navigate through Simmons Creek, which is really a fantastic experience. So you have a potential to connect up to our Limehouse boat landing. And at that point, you know, looking down the road, there's possible bike ped connections on Limehouse Bridge and potentially going into Johns Island itself. Just brief mention too, there's a future Sweetgrass Park that we are providing technical assistance to for that particular property. Of course, there's Stono River County Park up here. So that's an unstaffed park like our Megget Park. So people park, pay their $2, walk into the park and enjoy the experience. Zooming into the property, as I mentioned, there's two parcels here. There's Simmons Creek Tract, this is 53 acres, and then the Willow Oak Tract, 13 acres. Existing conditions-wise, we have an existing driveway that runs through Simmons Creek Tract and basically comes out to the edge here of the property along the marsh. There's an existing dock out there, which is pretty dilapidated. And so that pretty much constitutes existing features on this track. We did, there is a maintenance garage, for lack of a better word, on the Willow Oak track and some fencing along the edge here. I think that's all that's in terms of existing conditions in that particular track. So again, just reiterating, 53-acre parcel is the Simmons Creek, access to the Stono River, which is critical in terms of water access for the community. You would access the park through Old Pond Road. It is currently owned and maintained. Both parcels are currently owned and maintained by Low Country Land Trust, who we're working with in this application. The adjacent 13-acre Willow Oak would convey or transfer to PRC for public use as part of this application. Just again reiterating the connection to the Stono, and also just kind of reiterating what this opportunity presents itself for in terms of new recreational open space, new trails, paddle sport launch, new picnic amenities. There's approximately 2,000 linear feet of waterfront access for this property. Of course, it provides passive green space. It's mostly forested. We would, like any property that we would acquire, would do a cultural resource survey on it. So we would get our archaeologists to come in. These are consultants we've worked with for over 10, 15 years. They would come in and provide a phase 1 survey. Of course, we would protect all live oaks and mature trees as able. In some cases, especially for forested properties, we provide a forest management plan, which helps us identify how to protect the forest. So that includes removing invasives, enhancements of certain, ecosystems. So those are all guiding principles and guiding plans that we use for future development. Some wonderful pictures of Simmons Creek. So this is Simmons Creek. This is an aerial looking west, I believe, towards Limehouse Bridge. This is the dock I mentioned, which is a wonderful view of Simmons Creek. Some edge of the marsh here as you walk into the dock, and of course that's the dock leading out to the marsh. An aerial of Simmons Creek, again mentioning that it's mostly forested, right? So that's looking, I believe, east. This is the entrance of Old Pond Road into Simmons Creek. This is an aerial of Willow Oak. So Willow Oak is a little bit different. It's mainly meadows, mowed grass. And there's a maintenance shed, some fencing along the edge here. There is a pond also in this parcel. Another aerial looking east, there's the pond and Willow Oak, and of course all the forested area of Simmons Creek, and of course Simmons Creek in the background here. And the Stono beyond there. So potential improvements, just like the other properties and what Matt mentioned, we would look to establish a preservation zone, a no-bill zone for especially sensitive areas of the parcel. We are, just to call us out, at 1.7 acres of impervious surface, I think is where we are right now, but Eric can elaborate if needed. Site priorities and budget allows, we would identify new recreational amenities. That's per standard for any new properties that we acquire. And then also with any new properties, we would undergo a public master planning process. So that's something that we do internally. So this just gives you an idea of a concept. This was done internally, but it does just give you an indication how we could potentially use this property, right? So the access would be coming off of Old Pond Road. Our idea is that we would utilize the Willow Oak parcel for the main entrance into both parcels. So you'd have parking, we'd have a restroom, trailhead, open lawn for recreational amenities. There's the existing pond. So the idea is that you would park here, and then you could use this as a trailhead to then access both sites, both parcels, and have a trail experience. The other thing that we would do is probably create a new pervious road, gravel road, that would give you access or the public access all the way to the parking up here, which would then give you kayak and paddle sport launching opportunities. Of course, then you would launch your boat and then enjoy that blue trail. Acquisition status. So this was introduced to our commission as a potential Greenbelt funded acquisition, and that's the extent of where we are with our commission. The award will then, once awarded, we will initiate a formal conversation with Low Country Land Trust to create a conservation easement with the restrictions in language. We would acquire the property pending award from the Greenbelt and commission. So the commission would then have to accept it at some point in the process as per our policy and standards. And that would include the Willow Oak parcel. Of course, we would go through the due diligence and coordinate with the legal counsel towards the closing. And then the next steps, like again, we would just reiterate by saying, we would do our surveys, our handful of surveys that we do when we acquire new properties. We would then provide basic land management activities, mowing, invasive removals, just the basics until we get a forest management plan in place. We would remove existing structures as needed, which would likely be that dock, which is pretty dilapidated at this time. Yeah, and then the rest of it will just be about identifying a timeline for us to develop the property. So we would have to go internally into looking at our CIP, getting it into a strategic plan, just kind of fitting it into how we process and prioritize park development. And that's just another great view of Simmons Creek.
Any questions?
Got a quick one,
Oh,
and maybe it's for you, Eric. The existing impervious was 3%? Is that what that slide was, or they're requesting?
No, that's the standard limit with the fairly new policy that we have for passive parks.
That is the limit.
Yeah,
Okay.
the acreage falls into the 3% calculation
Okay.
range.
Thank you.
Do you have a comment?
I was just gonna comment, we have, I were expecting more support letters and emails from people, but I also, one of them came via a phone call from the neighbor immediately across Simmons Creek. We sent out the letters and he called because he was concerned about it. And then when I explained what it actually was, that it would be protected, ultimately, he was very excited about it. I said, it'd be great if you could put that in an email, to that email address on the letter. And he said, oh, I'll definitely do that. But I didn't get one from him yet.
We did receive one total and no public comments for this one.
Can you go back to your timeline a little bit? I think it's like your next to last slide. And so has your commission approved this, or are they waiting for the results of the county council, or how's that? It just sounds like,
So
I don't know.
They understand that this opportunity is out there. It has been introduced as a partnership opportunity with the land trust, and they were very supportive of it. One of our commissioners in particular is extremely supportive of water access opportunities on Johns Island. So we see absolutely no reason it wouldn't get approved, and they've endorsed it, but it wasn't presented to them as a, we didn't put a contract in front of them yet, because this was part of our timeline. Coming to Greenbelt was part of our timeline in coordination with the land trust.
I had a question about public access. I think I remember that from this application. It was a little bit more of an extended time frame for public access, and I certainly can understand you need to go through your CIP process and all the rest, but once you get through this step, is there not opportunities to at least open it up for public use before the improvements occur?
There's always, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
There's always the potential to do that, and that would be an internal conversation. Examples of that include, do we just build a parking lot? I hate to bring up rifle, but sort of like that, do we just build a parking lot and allow trail access? Maybe. Stoner River County Park across the river was, at the end of the day, it was roughly $2.5 million to build. And I think our development costs are kind of similar to that, in the 2.5 to 3+ million for this. So my hope is that we could shoehorn it into one of our 5-year CIP plans when there's a space. But like you know, there's all sorts of competing priorities when you have an existing park system that is aging. So, but I'll be with the committee today, and we could even discuss.
I was just thinking more like Laurel Hill. I mean, I know
Yeah.
Laurel Hill already kind of had some road beds in there that provided opportunities. But
Yeah,
that
it could
kind
look
of
like a Megget County park, right? So you have the parking, the trailhead, and it's unstaffed, so it could somewhat mimic that,
I think
as
it'd
a
just be a
prototype.
shame to wait for 5 years or whatever it was to,
Yeah,
not have some kind of access,
Yeah.
especially since it's got the kayaking opportunities.
We'll talk about it internally, and it's probably worth mentioning again with that Sweetgrass Park that's going to go in just less than a mile away. That'll include a playground. So that's a property owned by a church. We basically grant our hard funding allocation to that organization, and we help them with the technical assistance of designing that park and funding that playground and other facilities there. So there will be something nearby in an area that really doesn't have much. But we agree. Yeah, it'd be great to open it up.
And just, that is a Greenbelt funded property as well, the future Sweetgrass Park, just for your info. And one other note on opening it now, from what I saw, the dock needs some work also. You're not going to start launching kayaks off of that right away.
Pretty bad shape.
We're gonna start with mowing the grass.
Yeah.
I guess I'm looking at your map. Stono River County Park, that's pretty close to the previous project we had, right?
Yes.
That's right, yeah, so can you go back a few slides to yeah, this one, right here. So that previous project was, if you see the blue dot where it says Beulah Boat Landing,
Oh,
that is the red top. That's on the west side of Rantoul's Creek. The previous project is on the east side of Rantoul's
Right.
Creek. But that Beulah Cemetery is where the letter F is in Beulah Future.
right here, off of Hughes Road.
And so we need to coordinate with them because, you know, there may be a partnership opportunity there too. We're talking about matching funding, maybe technical assistance, something like that. We can encourage them.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'll move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We need to we gotta back up one. Nora was a nay on the previous one.
On the vote, two to do.
Yes.
All right.
All right,
Thanks, sir.
thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Take 5.
Do we need a quick break?
1 minute.
Okay.
Everybody go.
Older you get,
Yeah, more.
Got,
It's 2 hours and 10 minutes in.
two projects
and-
remaining.
And Douglas gets to go last. Douglas, why are you late? Okay. You were first, now you're last. You didn't want to sit here all day. You need to be over there giving tickets to those people in Owl Palms. These things off. We're not being recorded, are we?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
There we go.
We're back.
We're back. All right, South Carolina Farm Bureau Land Trust is for a conservation easement of 58 acres in the rural area. The request is for just over $213,000 with a $570,000 or 267% match. And Richard Carr, land manager for the Farm Bureau Land Trust, is here to present to you. Up and down is probably your best for
Up and down,
advancing
that's
slides,
super.
and then there is a
And then that's
little
the
laser
point.
pointer.
Super. Well, thank you, Eric, and thank you, folks, for the opportunity to present Scrambler's Knob. I'm going to talk a little bit because I know in talking to Eric, y'all are pretty used to fee simple purchase type deals. This is a little bit unique. It's a conservation easement. Y'all may be aware, but I kind of wanted to present the project from that perspective so you could kind of see the public benefit side of it to the county, because I think that's the most critical thing with this project in relationship to the Greenbelt. First of all, it's on Johns Island. It's on the rural end of Johns Island. It fronts River Road. It's owned by Jen Rosenkrantz. She's the owner-operator of the farm. It's actually owned by a trust that was set up by her late husband. And Jen is the trustee and the owner-operator of the farm. It's about just shy of 58 acres. It's all equine operation, but it's also her home as well. It's got about 20 acres of very well-managed pasture, but it also has 17 acres of wetlands along Avapula Creek, and we are working with her to place a conservation easement on the property. So a picture's worth 1,000 words, so here's a few pictures of the property just to see sort of the beauty of it all. It's a gorgeous piece of land. Jen has 2 stables on it. They're very well kept, and she boards horses there, as well as, I almost put a picture of a donkey she had for a while, but decided to keep it to business as opposed to cute stuff. But at any rate, here's the really unique situation about this property. It basically is surrounded by Mullet Hall Equestrian Center that's owned by the county parks. Jen shares, you can't see the boundary lines for Mullet Hall, but basically on either side of Scrambler's Knob, the Mullet Hall boundary line goes over halfway up her property on the left-hand side and about halfway up to that cutout right there on the right-hand side. So there is just about 1 mile of shared boundary between Mullet Hall Equestrian Center and Scrambler's Knob, which is critical to why we think a conservation easement here will be beneficial. On that boundary that she shares, there are adjacent trails of Mullet Hall that we'll see in a minute. So they are nestled right up against the property. When we are doing a conservation easement on a property, we're really identifying certain conservation values that we're protecting. A lot of times folks think this is all about natural areas, and it is, but it's also about how it benefits the general public. And in this particular case, it's actually benefiting public viewshed. And so permanent protection of this property is going to mean not only the access on River Road, which will be permanently protected, open space or forest land, but also that viewshed available to the public from the trail system that works all the way around her property from the park. And so essentially we are creating a protected viewshed for Mullet Hall Equestrian of just about 1 mile. So that shared boundary with those park trails, you can see this is kind of angled in a different way, but it basically goes right around her property. Jen even has a gated entrance to the trail system there that allows, that she's worked out with the county permission to work back and forth on the property as well. So anyway, there are the details right there. Boundaries adjacent, about 1 mile. I think the other important thing here is we were contacted. We're presenting this to the South Carolina Conservation Bank. Raleigh West contacted me a few weeks ago on the behest of the county park system and said, do you think the landowner would be willing to enter into a right of first refusal agreement with the park if she ever sells the property, to sell it to the county, so it could become part of the park system. There's nothing official yet, but yes, in principle, she's agreed to do so. She's very excited about that opportunity, would be willing to sign an agreement in that regard. We've talked about it a little bit with the guys here. So we do think there's an opportunity, not just for a short-term protection for viewshed, but a long-term project that may actually work in the county's favor. I want to talk about one other area, and then we'll get into some more details of how we're preparing the property if it were to be acquired by the park in the easement. The other public benefit is the protection of a natural ecosystem, in particular for the contribution to the native flora and fauna, but also the protection of water quality. There's 17 acres of wetland habitat on the property. Running through the center of it is Apapula Creek. And as y'all know, that runs eventually into the Stono River and the Stono Inlet. So that's a 17-acre wetland. Really, it's about, I guess you would say, about, 8 acres, 8.5 acres on either side of Apapula. So it's a perfect riparian buffer wetland system. This is a picture of it right here that's going to continue to provide water quality protection. We have very high restrictions within the easement that do not allow development of those areas and does not allow commercial forestry or agriculture in those restricted areas. We also have very specific restrictions of impervious surface limitations that also mean the property as a whole can contribute to that water quality protection. This is sort of, and this outlines within here the improvements that are allowed on the property. There are 2 stables that are both within a 0.15 acre envelope, which she's allowed to build out fully into that envelope. There is a 1.5 acre building area for residences, but within those residential building areas, is a total limitation between the two of only about about 1/2 acre of impervious surface within those 2 residential envelopes. And then she has one other, it's actually an old tennis court that's already an impervious surface, about 1/4 acre. We put that into an operational structure envelope. That could become something of an event venue type thing, or another barn or stable, that sort of thing. And then she would like to have the option to cover her existing riding arena and actually enclose that, but that would be a maximum of 1 acre. I think altogether we're talking about somewhere around 2 acres of total impervious structure. There is no impervious allowance for roads or trails or anything like that. They would all have to be gravel or dirt. The last thing I want to point out is the activities that are permitted in the easement are all equestrian. That includes fencing, gates, and trails. Obviously, they have to be pervious. Agricultural activities, we do write in there in case the property ever were to transition into a truck garden. We do allow forest management, but it has to be under the guidance of a certified forester or an arborist. We did write in event hosting, so there could be a venue in the future. And we also wrote in passive recreation allowances if it ever were to transition and become part of the park. They could work within those building envelopes to create more stables and apparatus. They could also just use the property for trails and equestrian activities as a whole. You did see the numbers up there, and I apologize I didn't do a slide on it. The value of the easement is $770,000. That's the difference between the fair market value of the property and what the property will be valued with the easement on it. Of that $770,000, we're making a request here of just a little over $200,000. The Conservation Bank is putting in 20%, that's 26% of the value. South Carolina Conservation Bank is putting in 21%, and the landowner is donating the remaining value, which is about 53%. So that's where the match is coming from, landowner donation and a South Carolina Conservation Bank grant. Real quick, next steps for us would be if this funding is approved, it has already been approved by the Grants Review Committee with the South Carolina Conservation Bank, but we'll have the formal board meeting on the 24th of this month. The last thing we would need to do is a Phase 1 environmental site assessment, and then we're ready to close the easement. Should close before the end of the year. Worst case scenario would be probably January of 2025. But we're pretty much set up and ready to go. Yes, sir.
The right of first refusal on the sale, or on a future sale, would really make it a no-brainer. Is that possible, or is it possible to get that relatively quickly? And would it help to have the leverage of, I don't know, a deferral here until that's in place? Would that give you additional leverage to get that right of first refusal?
We don't need leverage.
Okay.
She's willing to do it. I would rather, though, that we just look at the project based on the merits as a conservation easement. I mean, I think the right of first refusal would be a nice piece, but, you know, we haven't matured that agreement yet, and I'm not sure if I want to. I mean, I think it's going to be a done deal, but I don't want to put any pressure on the landowner.
Got it. Yeah, that's
You
fine.
know. But she's
Just a question.
all in principle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit, I don't think you'll ever come before, at least since I've been here, the South Carolina Farm Bureau Land Trust?
That's correct.
Can you just, a little bit of background on y'all?
Sure, yeah. We were in court, well, actually, our LLC, or excuse me, our 501c3 status was achieved about 2 years ago. It was a project that was worked within South Carolina Farm Bureau about 2 years prior to that. We started full operation in June of last year. When I came on board, I was with Upstate Forever for about 5 years prior to that, and was the assistant land conservation director at Upstate Forever. So we've gotten up and running pretty quick. We're now members of the National Land Trust Alliance. We have adopted their standards and practices with the Land Trust Alliance, or we are in process of getting accredited with the Land Trust Alliance. We currently hold 5 easements. We're closing on 2 more in October. Our 8th easement will probably close soon after. We have 26 projects in due diligence right now that will be closing in the next year. So we're new, but we're pretty active. Everything's going well.
So is most of your work more easements, and is it focused on working farms? Is that?
Yeah, it's solely easements right now. Long-term, we would like to consider some fee simple type stuff where we can maybe help young farmers get into renting more, better terms on renting land. But right now, yeah, our only tool right now is conservation easements. And I was trying to remember your second question.
Yeah, is your focus working farms? Is that?
It is, yeah. And so the way that we look at it, we support silviculture, we support all agricultural activities, but we also have an equine committee, and this falls within the purview of our equestrian side of the business.
Are y'all headquartered out of where?
Our headquarters are in Casey, South Carolina, and
okay.
Columbia. Yep. My headquarters are in my truck. Because I cover the whole state, which is exhausting at the moment. We do have a meeting with another landowner on Johns Island this afternoon. There's a core member, so we're hoping we can continue to work within the ag community down here and make a difference.
Good.
Any other questions?
I'll motion for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Super.
nays?
Thank you.
Ayes have it. Thank you. Let's go, IOP. Really quick.
I don't think they're here.
Yeah, he's here. This is all the fun.
Sorry, just gotta get back to the start.
Yeah. This is all we get.
Can't talk bad about them.
It's probably
1,000 people every weekend.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah.
All right. Last project for your consideration is the City of Isle of Palms request for beach access improvements at 26A and 36A beach access sites. It's minor improvements only, very similar to their recently completed 34A project. They would be built over 2 existing pathways that are prone to flooding. There would not be ADA accessible simply due to the dune system out there, doesn't allow it, but it will improve access. Request is for $315,000 from the city's allocation, and they're offering 7% match of $23,400. I'll turn it over to Douglas Kerr, Deputy City Administrator.
Thank you, Eric. Douglas Carr, City of Isle of Palms, and we are very excited to be in front of you and making this request. We feel very good about a previous project that was very similar at 34A, as Eric mentioned, whereby the city provided access through a very low portion of the dune field to give people access from Palm Boulevard to the beach. And that was in the area of 34, Avenue 34. These 2 projects are in the areas of 26 and 36. So we are trying to fill in the access points in the city's most popular section of public beach parking. That's really between 21st and 41st Avenue along Palm Boulevard. That's the lion's share of kind of the public access on the island. We do have 56 access points. A lot of those don't have the kind of volume of parking immediately adjacent that we have between 21st and 41st. We are also trying to kind of spread those. We're currently building, we're trying to build 4 this year. Some of those are in different parts of the island, but a little bit more remote. We don't think that they get the visibility and the use that these do along 21st to 41st. As I mentioned, these are low, these accesses are very low, and where we don't, this is a photograph of 26A, and this is actually probably 3-4 days after a good rain, and this is not unusual for this area. So after kind of soaking rain, that entire stretch will be almost inaccessible. So as I mentioned, there's another picture of 36A. So again, a very similar condition after rain, very wet, pretty well impassable. This is a picture of 34A, the one that we mentioned that we've recently completed. And that's an example there on the photograph to the right where we elevated it just enough to get above that standing water so the public can gain access after a storm. This project was done with pervious concrete, so it allows that water to flow through it and under it. We are proposing on these 2 future paths to be entirely wood. That concrete, while it has been great for water permeability, has not been great on feet. So we heard a little bit about that you're kind of walking on these Rice Krispie treats, and it's hard on bare feet. So we're planning to do the entirety of these boardwalks out of wood slats. The city is seeking $315,000. As I mentioned, we have already gotten bids back on 2 other boardwalks that we're doing by ourselves. Those bids have come back a lot higher than we expected. So as with everything, kind of prices are escalating. We may have a condition where we cannot do both of these in the next calendar year. The city has $200,000 dedicated in this year's budget to these projects. if the bids come back and these funds are approved at 315, we add the city's budget of 200,000, we think we may be looking at between 100 and 200 of a shortfall in the budget. We will approach our city council about covering that shortfall, and we may have to discuss options, if they're not willing to do that, of breaking these two projects into two different fiscal years. So we would like to have kind of the understanding that if we can't make both happen this year, that we would amend our request, and we clearly would work through Eric to do this, to do these two projects over the next 2 years. That's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions about these projects.
Any questions?
A motion for approval.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? You got it, Douglas. Just took you 2.5 hours to get here.
It's good to wait till the end. You guys were beaten down and
Yeah, we are
just
ready to go
easy,
home.
very
It's
easy,
lunch.
ready to go home. Thank you all so much.
It's time for lunch.
Just a reminder, next meeting will be a week from today, same place,
How many
same
projects are
time.
there?
Count 'em.
9 more?
Next week? Okay.
Yeah, we'll have the same amount next week as we did this week.
Can we-
All rural.
Okay. Beazer has a conflict.
Our quorum is 5, so as long
2,
as
3, 4, 1, 2.
everyone
We got
else
five.
is here, we're good.
Count 5. Well, we'll be okay with 5, right?
Yeah, I need to leave soon after 11:50, because I got to teach
Okay.
at noon.
So we gotta
Okay.
move. So we need to put a time on them when they present. Can we do that?
We tried that today, we're
I
just
know,
we're gonna
but
need
it
a
was-
hard stop whenever
Listen,
the,
I
Is there a
know.
timer?
No, we need to put a 4-minute.
You need to put the timer.
we can't do a timer while we're doing a
Right.
presentation, but
I know.
yes, we'll,
We didn't need a history lesson, I mean, that's, yeah.
Right here.
yeah. We had one going off today, they just kind of ignored it.
Okay.
Okay.
So, little more enforcement, and we should get through them quicker.
Next week, let's try to stick to the
We can get
script.
done if we stick
So we can be done
Yeah, I
in
think
2
we
hours.
can too.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
All right.
Hey, thank y'all.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. You do what you gotta do.
I forgot to.